Welcome once again to Faces and Places. Well, this week we've come down to the sunny southeast to Waterford. We're here in Dunmore East. We're going to Passage East. We're going to the Narra Valley. The monks at Mellery are expecting us. And of course we couldn't be in Waterford and not visit the famous Waterford glass factory. So we hope you'll stay and enjoy it all with us. Dropped in here to Dunmore East Fire Station, and we've discovered that there is a woman on the firefighting team. Louise Whitley, you're very welcome to the programme.
Thank you very much.
When did you join the fire station?
Well, last September I did my training and I was enrolled on the 1st of October last year.
Why did you join?
Good question. Well, actually I was out of work at the time. I was working in a boutique part-time at the time, and I used to go through the job ads on the local paper every week, and I came across, vacancies in the Dunmore East Fire Brigade. So it was male or female applicants, so I never even thought, it didn't even strike me, this is not a job a woman does. I took it by the ad that it was something, was common, so I wrote away my application and got an interview and went in. Unfortunately wasn't prepared or didn't even think about what I was getting into, and I think I wore a nice suit or something and was all dolled up, and I heard no more about it, or at least got my letter to say I wasn't accepted. So a couple of months later they were still looking for people to fill the position, and I reapplied and took a different attitude when I went in for the interview. I was a little bit more assertive and determined, so I again had my interview and was accepted for a medical. I went and had my medical and passed my medical, and therefore ended up in Cappoquin being trained to be a firefighter.
It's a far cry, all of this, from the Rose of Tralee, because you entered the Rose of Tralee last year and had a very glamorous and exciting week. Quite a bit of settling down to this kind of life afterwards.
It was a big step immediately, I suppose. It was, from one extreme to the other, but I think I've adapted it, and still known around the village as Rosie, or Thistle as was more appropriate at the time for some reason or other. But at the same time now, they do kind of refer to me as our firefighter or our firewoman or whatever, on occasion as well.
Well, describe for us your first emergency call.
Actually, it was the following Saturday after I joined, and it was a chimney fire. I was just about to get into the bath, and I have an alerter, like a page for doctors or whatever, and it sets off an alarm, something like an electric alarm, electric clock rather, and this went off. I nearly lost my life, because it wasn't the first time I'd heard how it sounded, but I just didn't expect it to go off, so I immediately got dressed again and ran over, and I think I was probably one of the first here because I came so quickly, and of course I'm only living across the road, so that's very convenient. And of course I was very nervous. I didn't know what to expect or what was, what we would be doing, and could I remember what I was supposed to be doing. But of course we have a full crew that have been here a long time, so I knew I could rely on them if all my memory failed me. But we turned out, and it was a very simple operation. Chimney fire sometimes is, and enjoyed it thoroughly. So that was my first experience, and probably chimney fire was the best way to be kind of called into it, because it was reasonably minor. I suppose no fire is ever minor, and I could kind of get my footing slowly.
Do you find that the men treat you like a lady? Do they stand back for you, or did they treat you as one of the gang?
At first, I suppose they did. They were some were a little wary, and some kind of tended still to open the door and let me through, or whatever, you know. Or if we were out on a fire call, I was first in, or you know, first out, whatever. But as time went on, and I suppose they saw my performance, and they saw how I, you know, deal with them, and that I'm not a feminist, and I'm not still wanted to be treated like, you know, one of the lads totally. So it's kind of balanced out to a happy medium. You know, they're perfectly happy with me the way I am.
It must take a little bit of adjusting to be wearing pretty clothes, to be used to wearing pretty clothes, and then to have to wear something as masculine, really, as this gear.
The only advantage I had was I actually started my training, and the first time I experienced doing a drill with a hose, for instance, or the first time I had to reel out a hose or anything like that, or whatever I was doing, was in this uniform. So I never thought of it any other way, but doing it like this, or the first time I climbed a ladder, it was always in this. So I became adapted to it, and I suppose now if I were to do it without, I'd probably say, God, it's easier, you know, but at the same time, when you're used to something, you don't even think about it.
Louise's father, Stephen Whittle, has given tremendous service to the lifeboat service here in Dunmore East and is the most decorated coxswain in Ireland.
I've given the last 25 years of my life to the lifeboat service here in Dunmore East. And as I say, and all that time, you know, we've had all our hairy, scary sort of thing, you know, and bad times, bad weather and what have you. And the lifeboat we have at the moment is one of the most modern of its class in the British Isles, you know. But this boat is a modern boat, 520 horsepower, self-righting, and it's as good as we can get at the moment. There are bigger boats, but this is ideally suited for Dunmore East, you know.
What's the roughest area around?
The roughest area, to my knowledge, is Hook Head, but that depending on the sort of weather, the state of the currents and what have you, whether you have 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock tides or something like that, you know, and the wind southeast, and you get a very bad sea there, you know.
Have you rescued many, many people in your 25 years?
Well, I haven't an exact number, but we've done some outstanding rescues here, really, and one in particular was around the 1970s. That was the Glenmore was coming, heading from Kilmore Quay to Dunmore East.
A fishing boat? A
fishing boat, yes. 65, it was a herring boat, really, at the time, you know. And that boat set out, and it got as far as Hook Head, and a huge sea just wallowed in aboard and took the wheelhouse completely off. We were summoned by the pilot station here. There was trouble at the Hook Head. We come down, no more rounds up, and grabbed a few fellas and away to, and we were rescued 3 there.
Well, we're still at Dunmore East, and we're up at the pilot station, and Francis Glody here is Assistant Pilotage Superintendent and Collector of Rates. Francis, what exactly does your job entail?
It entails looking after ships going in and out of Waterford Harbour. The ship's agents in Waterford and near us would give me an idea, maybe 24 hours in advance of the ships coming in, and then when the ships are 2 or 3 hours away, they would call us and order a pilot. And if the tide was suitable, I'd get a pilot for them, and the pilot would take them up the river.
You're the only woman I've ever met in this type of job. How did you get into it?
It was my father's job before me, and then I did a marine electronics course in Cork and just followed on from there.
Well, there aren't ships travelling in non-stop, so in between the ships you've got a fair bit of spare time. How do you fill it in?
I find I read a lot, and at the moment I'm studying for a skipper's ticket, fishing ticket, so that takes up quite a lot of my time.
Do you fancy being skipper of a ship yourself?
Sometimes I think about it, but if it ever presents itself, maybe, but it's not necessary.
Just a few miles upriver from Dunmore East, you arrive at the lovely village of Passage East. From there you can catch the ferry across to Ballyhack on the Wexford side. Derek Donnelly kindly brought us for a trip on his fishing boat upriver towards Cheek Point and told me all about the ferry which he owns.
The car ferry there is doing a return trip about every quarter of an hour. In fact, at the moment we're doing approximately 130 crossings a day, every day.
And the people it's serving, is it people mostly coming off the boat from Rosslare?
Yes, well, partially that. There's a very considerable local traffic, a lot of commuter traffic coming from the Wexford side. And the Hook Peninsula, of course, is famous for its beautiful scenery and its magnificent beaches. And when you get a really good summer's day, you get a lot of people from the County Waterford side going over to enjoy the superb beaches in the Hook Peninsula.
What mileage do you save taking the ferry to stop going around?
You'd save yourself approximately an hour's drive between Waterford and Rosslare. It is quite a considerable shortcut. And the road from the ferry down to Wexford town is an excellent road, very, very good road.
That's a useful one to have, isn't it?
Indeed, yes, it's been very successful. We started it there 5 years ago, almost exactly to this month. And since we started up, we've had an increasing volume of traffic year by year.
What is the charge?
Well, for a car and passengers, it's £3 one way and £5 return. And for pedestrians, it's £1 return.
Very good.
We inherited the fare for pedestrians from an old open boat ferry that existed there. It was run by a very well-known local riverman called Patsy Barron, and subsequently by his nephew Jim Roach. And they used to always charge the price of a pint of Guinness to cross the river. And when we took over the ferry, the price of a pint of Guinness was £1, and we've maintained that price to this day. So we reckon we have a good measure of inflation, except that we've maintained the price at £1 return. It's primarily obviously used by local people going across and back. And this property that we're just approaching on the northern side of the island here is Mrs. Charmaine Hill's property, the former home of Dawn Run.
That's the stables where Dawn Run actually was.
Indeed, yes.
Oh, I didn't know this was the area.
It is indeed. He used to canter down by the riverfront there, or she did rather. Sorry, she was a mare.
Yeah, it's a beautiful spot too, isn't it?
It is a pretty place.
We've been driving along the coast here and we've come to a beautiful place called Woodstown. Now you may remember some years ago hearing about Woodstown because it was in this area that Jackie Kennedy rented a house for her holidays for 6 long, lovely weeks. But we've come to say hello to two people who live here all the time, and they are Valerie and Johnny Maroney.
Welcome to Woodstown, Kathleen.
Thank you very much. Johnny, a lot of people would remember you from your rugby playing days.
That's right. I played for Ireland 6 times. I was reserved for 3 years previous to that.
Have you any special memories of those occasions?
Yes, I had my second international. I had a very good game against France, and it was our first time beating them for 10 years or so. And I happened to be lucky to score a lot of points, which was very nice.
Tremendous. Nowadays you're a selector, so it's rather nice for you to keep the interest going over the years.
It is, yes. I retired quite young. I had a bad accident at rugby, unfortunate one. And I think I got a lot out of rugby, and I think it's good to put something back into it. I think, you need people with experience as selectors, and I think it's important for the game.
You also have an athletic qualification. Tell me about your years at Strawberry Hill.
Yes, I was very interested in all sports all my life. I played hurling, football for Tipperary, played rugby when I was in Rockwell, so did a lot of athletics. So I think everybody thought it was the right thing for me to do, and I went to Strawberry Hill. It was the only college. There was no college in Ireland at the time. It was the only college in England that was recommended to us. So I did 3 years in Strawberry Hill doing an advanced diploma in physical education.
And you're teaching locally?
Yeah, I'm lecturing now in the regional college in Waterford. I have a course there, recreational management. And it's a very, very popular course.
How long is it?
It's a 3-year diploma course.
How would recreational management differ from the physical education courses that we know?
Well, we consider we're in the area of management, where our course would be 50% management and 50% sports science. We're getting graduates ready for the field of sports centres, hotels with sports facilities, with the tourist industry. So we think that this particular field now is a growing area, with leisure time being so much leisure time, and with so many unemployed. We consider that they have should have a lot of activities for them, available for them.
Valerie, coming back now to the house, tell me a little bit about the history of it.
Well, the house was built in 1770 by Joshua Pole. He came over with Cromwell. He was a dragoon in Arton's regiment of the Cromwellian army, and he built the house. The family originated from Durham, Polesworth in Durham, and the Pole family lived in the house right up to the early 60s, when the last member of the Pole family, Sir Robert Pole, died, and the house was sold then, and Major Philip Profumo bought it. He had it for a number of years. He did a lot of renovation work to the house, and it was idle then for 8 to 10 years before we bought it.
Did you hear it was for sale?
Yes, we had our eye on it for a while. It was closed up and pretty derelict looking, and we did a bit of investigation and found it was for sale, and we were lucky enough to buy it.
Taking on a house like this is a lot of hard work, because there's a lot of maintenance, and you have to fill these enormous rooms with beautiful things. Well, one would feel one should,
Yeah.
and you're obviously interested in antiques.
Very interested in antiques.
Are you hunting all the time?
Always.
For them, yeah.
Yes. Bought a lot at various auctions and got some from my family home in Cork as well.
Is it still
So-
possible to get bargains at auctions?
Very rarely now. Very rarely.
Well, what could be more pleasant? A lovely day, the birds singing in the background, and we're here on the edge of Dunmore Beach chatting to Nancy Toomey. Nancy, you've been involved a lot over the years with the ICA.
Yes, indeed, Catherine, I have. Since about 1945 we set up the Guild in Dunmore.